Howdy everybody, Joy Beland here for CMMC Explained. You know, I've been having a lot of conversations with folks about how they are preparing for CMMC and what kind of resources they're using for the implementation of the practices. And that got me to thinking, you know, I go through a whole process when I'm preparing to do something like work with our peer groups on a specific domain or set of practices and making sure that I understand in each individual control what all the related resources and reference materials are so that I can give people good guidance. And some of these are super easy to identify because they're provided by CMMC in the actual appendix. The model appendix, version 1.2, I think is the most recent one. And I wanted to give you an example of how I go about this. First of all, I have to say, I rely heavily on my background as a CISM, Certified Information Security Manager, and my book from Misaka looks like this. I have all kinds of, tags on the sides, highlights, stickers, you name it, so that I can go straight to the part of the book that is the most important for the reference material I need. It seems to be common sense, right, for me, but there's a lot of people who will go through a book and then only feel like they have to go back to it once or twice. I live out of these. I love having the documentation to help guide me. And, frankly, there's so much to know and learn constantly. So I've seen people that have a CISSP manual on their desk and they use it every single day as their desk reference. I do that with my CISM. I also am doing that with the CISA. Now, another conversation I just had yesterday about the importance of having this kind of auditing background and experience. In my mind, CMMC would go a long way in putting some CISAs into those assessor seats, but let's just take a look at it, because from an auditor's perspective, understanding all of the different areas that you should be addressing as a best practice really comes into play when it comes to CMMC. Let me give you an example. One of the practices that I'm looking at right now is PE2 135. What is that? Physical protection. It's at level 2. Protect and monitor the physical facility and support infrastructure for organizational systems. Now, what do I think of when I look at protecting the physical facility? First thing that comes to mind, a James Bond movie, right? Somebody's scaling the outside of a building to break in. Once they're in, they're accessing the server room where they shouldn't have access. They're able to stick in a thumb drive. Well, what we notice in the appendix for this is the actual one. At the bottom, yes, that is my writing. This is James Bond. At the bottom are all of these different reference documents. And those reference documents provide specific crosswalk to other frameworks that will help you to interpret what is required for this. It seems so straightforward, but let me tell you, the very first place that I started when I started to dig into this particular control is I went to my CISA book. There's a whole section right here on 5.3.4, physical access, exposures, and controls. And what this helps me to do is understand, am I thinking of everything that I may need to audit that is a physical access entry point? And so it lists all kinds of actual physical storage and then physical areas of a facility, different types of facilities that might need to be taken into scope. If you're missing something in the scope, you're missing something important. We all know that. Next thing I'm doing. Okay, so one of the references it gives is Nist Sp 801.71. It tells me right where to go within that document 3.10.2. Then I can read about the Nist 801.71, which we all know is the platform for building CMMC. But some of the other things that it gives as reference, like the CERT RMM. Now, I don't have a printed copy of that in front of me. It's a very big document, but I'm going to give some screenshots here of what that looks like. If you haven't looked at the CERT RMM and you're responsible for the documentation on any of these practices, I suggest you look at those references because the CERT RMM is robust. As I'm doing documentation, it is always interesting for me to visit the way that Carnegie had spelled out the way that the policy, the processes, the procedures should all intertwine and what kind of considerations should you be mindful of. The next thing that it referenced here is the Nist Sp 853. Now the PE6 that it references in the 853 controls, again, this is a wealth of information. Now, I don't know about you, for 853, I really prefer the spreadsheet format. But the reason that I love 853 is that you'll see it at the high level. It has the actual physical access controls, and then it breaks it out into the individual segments. So the individual areas of what you would be looking at for the applying the physical controls. So the final thing that I want to bring up is that I also use the CERT guide to insider threats. This is one of my faves because in all areas I find of these controls, I always want to be mindful of what are the human risks. And as you know, for insider threats, you are covering both unintentional and intentional. What are you looking for in anything that would be risk mitigation that you can build into the actual processes and training behind what you're implementing? So for insider threats, do they have guidance on things like employment of the guards? The use of video surveillance equipment? What are the indicators of compromise that you're looking for? All right, I'm gonna stop there. What I really wanted to share though is the way that I do my studying. You can see that I have my binder with all of the CMMC. I've got the model in here, the appendix. I've got the 80171. I've also got, and you don't have this yet, but you will. I've got my CCP instructor field guide that we are drafting right now for the CMMC CCP course. And I got to tell you, we've done a great thing in this because we went through the 130 controls and we actually combined the information from the appendix, the information from the assessor's guide, level 1 and level 3, along with scenarios and real life context for what would an assessor be looking for every single one of those practices. Woohoo! You know what else we put in here? Helpful tips and hair on fire. What the hell is hair on fire, you're saying? Well, hair on fire are those things that are those big gotchas. That it's like you think you've made your way through implementing the practice successfully, and then all of a sudden it's like, I completely missed X, Y, or Z. Whatever those are, we throw them in with our expert team of subject matter expert writers that are helping us to draft these field guides. So that's my story for today. This is how I'm preparing for a simple meeting on physical protection and the domain that we'll be covering in our 17 and 17 peer group. If you're an implementer and you're struggling with how to implement any of these practices, I want you to know we are really enjoying our interaction and engagement that we have with the 20 or so people that are joining us every week for 90 minutes to walk through what are their challenges and their best practices in implementing these controls. If you want to join us, just ping me. We still have seats available for the next group of domains that we'll be doing, which starts in 2 weeks. And we have some really amazing outside experts coming in to help guide these conversations, along with our own Edwards internal team, which I have to say, they're pretty amazing. If you haven't interacted with us, we have 5 provisional assessors, 3 provisional instructors, and every one of us on our team is a registered practitioner. So we're knee deep in CMMC and we're here to help shepherd this process. So please reach out. You know, we are all in this together and we really do want to make this an amazing experience for as many as we can. Join us.